guys, this is the Gaming Revolution here, and welcome back to an all-new Black Ops 3 Zombies video. And today we're actually going to be discussing about the fact that there's a pretty good possibility that Reznov may be being integrated within the future of Black Ops 3 Zombies storyline and its DLC. Now once again, this is another pre-recorded video. I am currently on holiday at the time you're actually watching this video, so if you're wondering why I've not been staying up to date with news, or if there's been any trailers that I've dropped, and if you're wondering why I'm not covering them and doing breakdowns, that is why, but I'll be covering it all once I am back. Now, quite some time ago, I did in fact make a video discussing all the information that we know so far in regards to the DLC3 Zombies map. Now, obviously, we've not gotten DLC2 yet, but for the first time in COD Zombies history, Treyarch have really given us a direct and linear path on which they seem to be following for the future of the Zombies storyline. Now, I'm going to link that video down in this video's description, and it discusses about the Stalingrad DLC map. It's over 20 minutes long, so, you know, it is a bit of a long one, but if you watch that video, this video will make a lot more sense, and you'll just have a better idea of what's going on. But once DLC2 is actually released, I'm sure Treyarch will give us even more information and teasers towards this map. But the general gist of this map is we are going to be trying to kill the older version, the test subject of Nikolai. However, things could change down the line. What I'm saying is the whole point of our characters going to Stalingrad is to try and kill the test subject of Nikolai, just like how we killed the older version of Richtofen on the Giant, and just like how we killed the older version of Dempsey on the Eisendrache. And we are going to be trying to kill the older version of Takeo on the next DLC map in DLC2, which is going to be set in the Pompeii Islands. Now, I'm not saying that we 100% will actually kill Nikolai, and I'm not saying we will 100% kill Takeo on the Pompeii map either, but what I'm saying is our aim of going to those maps will be to try and kill them. But during the actual Easter eggs on both of these maps, something could go wrong, which may prevent us from actually killing those characters. Who knows? The older version of Takeo or the older version of Nikolai could kill the actual younger version, the Origins version. Somehow they could awaken from their test subject state and it would mess up the entire zombie storyline. Now, the reason we're actually killing these characters is so that Richtofen can actually put their souls within the summoning key. At the moment, we're unsure on the reason of Richtofen actually trying to do this, because we're unsure on what Richtofen's grand scheme actually is, but we know he's been going through different parallel universes, as there's tons of quotes on the Giant that do in fact hint at this, and we saw from the scraps of paper on Shadows of Evil that he's been crossing off different universes and doing things in different universes. All of this seems to actually be trying to protect the actual children, the ones that we see within the Origins ending cutscene, and we see obviously Samantha's room and her paintings within the Eisendrache, but we don't entirely know what he's trying to do. Is he simply trying to protect them and protect their universe? Because I believe that the Origins ending cutscene takes place in a completely separate universe, and maybe he's trying to protect that universe, or maybe his plan is in fact evil, but we really just don't know at the moment. We have no reason to speculate because we don't really know what his plan is, we just know what he's doing. So now that I've given you that bit of an overview, I want to take my attention of the subject of this video to talk more specifically about this Stalingrad map, and also how it's highly likely that Reznov could be integrated within this map in some way. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be a playable character, I'm not saying that at all. Maybe we'll just see him referenced on the map, maybe via a radio quote, for example. We could hear him on a radio quote, or maybe he'll be like Dr. Groth that we see on the Eisendrache, maybe he'll be integrated within the Easter egg, but he won't be a playable character, or maybe there'll be paintings of him or something like that. But I definitely think he's going to tie into the zombie storyline in this map in some way. I just don't know the scale of how much he's going to tie into it. Now, people have been talking about this for quite some time. In fact, for Black Ops 3 Zombies specifically, multiple people have made videos talking about how Reznov may tie into it, and at first I never really, sort of believed them, I never agreed with them, but as more information, as more research I have done, it seems more and more likely that Reznov will be being integrated into this DLC3 map set in Stalingrad in some way, shape or form. Now we know that this Stalingrad map will in fact be coming in the future from the scraps of paper on Shadows of Evil, because one of the coordinates actually led to the giant, and obviously we've had that map and that was a bonus DLC map. One of the coordinates actually led to the Hohenwerfen Castle in Werfen in Austria, and that's where the Eisendrache is actually set. Another coordinate led us to the Pompeii Islands, and that's where DLC2 is going to be set. And the final coordinate actually led us to Stalingrad, also known as Volograd, but I'm pretty sure that we will be playing in Stalingrad, as the time setting will probably be around Stalingrad rather than Volograd. Now, where all of these links to Stalingrad linking in to Reznov in some way are actually stemming from is because in World at War there was actually a campaign mission titled Vendetta, and within this mission, Private Dmitry Petrenko and Sergeant Reznov, two soldiers from the Soviet Union's Red Army, attempt to assassinate General Heinrich Amsel after surviving an attack by the German, I can't even pronounce those words, in Stalingrad. It is the first mission of the European theatre. And since that mission was set in Stalingrad, it's safe to assume that this could tie into this zombies map. Now you may be thinking I'm completely crazy here, but if you watch the video link down in this video's description, it would make a lot more sense, because people have been having theories ever since World at War, Black Ops and Black Ops 1 that somehow the campaign would tie into the zombie storyline, but that never really made sense, as because the actual storylines never really tied into each other. But now moving into Black Ops 3, the actual campaign storyline does tie into the zombie storyline, and that's how this is all going to make sense. Now, back in Black Ops 1, there was actually a portrait on Kino de Toten of a blank character, which I'll put on screen now. And back then, a lot of people thought that this blank portrait could have actually been Reznov. And I'm not saying that it is Reznov. I don't think it is. People thought his facial features were similar to Reznov, and that's where they came up with that theory. Personally, I don't think it is Reznov, but that's what a lot of people thought. And that's where a lot of these ideas stemmed from, Reznov tying into the zombie storyline. Now, when moving over into Black Ops 2, on Mob of the Dead, when you actually pack-a-punched the AK-47, I believe, when you actually pack-a-punched it, the gun was then called Reznov's Revenge. And as you can see, this is where all of this is tying together now, because Reznov's Revenge, why would a gun be called Reznov's Revenge within Mob of the Dead, a zombies game? Why would that happen? See, this is a direct link between Reznov and the zombie storyline, and you really can't argue against it. Now, I don't know who Reznov wants revenge on, but you know, I'm going to be discussing that within this video. But definitely, there is some sort of link between Reznov, the campaign, and also zombies. But on a scale, on an actual scale of how big of an effect that is, we don't really know. Maybe Reznov simply ties into the Mob of the Dead crew in some way, but we've seen references on Shadows of Evil and on also the Giant, that Mob of the Dead is still playing a huge role within the zombie storyline, and I think it does play a bigger role than we first interpreted, and I think maybe that Reznov may be one of the big links between Mob of the Dead and the general zombie storyline as a whole, because it is just a side mission, but it does have links into the normal zombie storyline as well, and we know that Nikolai and the Weasel do know each other in some way. Now here's where it's going to get a bit interesting. Now I did mention this within the actual Stalingrad video, but on the mission Vendetta, Richtofen is on the mission. Now, if you were unaware, that all of the character models for World at War, all of the 4 characters, including Richtofen, all of their characters' models were simply taken from the campaign, because Zombies was a last-minute project, a last-minute thing. And it turns out that Richtofen's actual character model was taken from the mission Vendetta. Now, back when Treyarch were making World at War, they never intended for the campaign to tie into Zombies, as it was a last-minute thing. They never intended for it in a million years. However, now that they've gotten to Black Ops 3, I'm sure that they're going through with stuff that they've done in past games, and they're finding out ways to put the breadcrumbs together, you know, put links that they never intended together to make it seem like they had this zombie storyline all the way planned out from World at War, even though they didn't. And they've been doing this for years. They always do it. They always leave little breadcrumbs here and there, which they never intended to fit together, but then they do in the future to make it seem like they had this massive genius plan. Now, obviously, the actual Richtofen character model on this mission was called someone else, and you can actually see his character bio on screen now. He was not called Richtofen, but what could do is they could say he was some sort of undercover spy, or he was going as an alter ego name. So this is essentially his alter ego character. Maybe he was going undercover within this mission for some specific reason, and that's how it sort of ties together between Richtofen and also this vendetta mission, Reznov, and the overall zombie storyline. Now, when Richtofen was actually on this mission, what he could have actually been doing is he could have been undercover trying to actually recover the actual Nikolai test subject, because obviously Nikolai's Russian and Stalingrad is set in Russia, so maybe that's where he was at this particular time, and maybe this Richtofen alter ego was trying to infiltrate something at that time, but obviously he did in fact die within the vendetta mission. And what this could mean is that instead the older version of Richtofen and the other crew may instead have to go to Stalingrad to recover the Nikolai test subject. Whilst going there, they may in fact coincide with Reznov. Whether that would be intentional or unintentional, I think that has a high chance. You've also got to bear in mind that even though Reznov did die in Black Ops 1, this is prior to the events of Black Ops 1. And also, we're dealing with multiple universes here, so pretty much anything goes, really. But what's even more interesting is that we got a teaser trailer for DLC1 for the Eisendrache, which I'll actually put on screen now, and it showed Nikolai within the frozen forest, the forest that we actually see in the outro cutscene, and also within the main menu for Black Ops 3. It showed that frozen forest, and this is a massive link between Black Ops 3's campaign and also zombies, because this actual forest, well, it shows Nikolai within a house, and it turns out that this house is actually the exact same house featured within the Demon Within campaign mission. And the interesting thing about this is that the Demon Within campaign mission is a simulation of a real-life event known as the Siege of Bastogne. Now, the Siege of Bastogne was an engagement in December 1944 between American and German forces at the Belgian Tower of Bastogne. As part of a larger Battle of the Bulge, the goal of the German offensive was the harbour at Antwerp. In order to reach it before the Allies could regroup and bring their superior air power to bear, German mechanized forces had to seize the railroads through eastern Belgium because all 7 main roads in the densely wooded Ardennes highlands converged on the small Belgian town of Bastogne. Only a few miles away of the border to neighbouring Luxembourg, control of its crossroads and vital to the German attack. The siege lasted from December the 20th to the 27th, after which the besieged American forces were relieved by elements of General Georges Patton's Third Army. So I think this is again one of the huge links here. We're not sure why Nikolai was actually featured within the Siege of Bastogne entirely, but it's some sort of huge link here. However, within the campaign, it's actually a simulation of this event, because but within the future, it's a simulation. And similarly, the actual frozen forest, the forest, I believe is an area where all of their collective thoughts and minds are actually held. I believe it's an inanimate place. It's a place that doesn't actually exist, and I believe that's where all the characters' thoughts are held. And that's why when we see within this Nikolai teaser trailer, within his memories, we see him recalling on his memories, because this isn't just a memory place, it's a memory bank essentially. But somehow that's going to have a huge link here, and I believe when he was within the actual forest cutscene that we got, I believe this is within the future. I believe this is after maybe even DLC4's come out, and I believe that's when he's recalling on the past. But what's weird is within this actual forest cutscene that actually takes place in the Siege of Bastogne, we actually see 2 faces. Now, they could be the same person, but it's very hard to make out who it actually is. At first, I thought this face was in fact Nikolai, but upon closer look, it kind of resembles Reznov in some way, but it does actually show 2 faces. One's wearing a hat and one's not wearing the hat. It could be the same person. However, Nikolai and also Reznov, they have similar actual facial features, and they both are Russian, obviously. But could this face actually be the face of Reznov and also Nikolai? They could have split between the two, and it's hinting at this link here within the future. But not only that, within this, for a very brief second, we actually see a massive nuke or explosion go off within this actual frozen forest. You see it very slowly, and we've still not got an explanation of what or how this has actually happened, but in the future it will be explained. For some reason, this massive nuke goes off within the frozen forest, or the Siege of Bastogne. Maybe it could have happened due to one of the rockets coming from the Eisendrache, because there was a lot of rockets left over on the Eisendrache even after the moon was exploded. Or maybe what could have happened is after we exploded the moon, after we actually blew up the moon, shards of rock could actually start falling to Earth via gravity, and it could cause massive explosions all over the Earth, and that could cause this explosion. But anyways, I'm not really sure. I do think that Reznov will be tying into the future of the zombie storyline, but let me know all of your thoughts on this down in the comment section down below, as well as if you've got any other evidence to further back up anything that I have said. If you're confused about any of these theories as well, make sure to leave your thoughts down in the comment section down below and I'll be sure to answer them. But I'm confident that Reznov will be tying in the future of the zombies storyline, specifically DLC3, but maybe even further down the line or in some way, maybe even in the next map DLC2. But again, all of this could change. Everything I've just said within today's video could change completely by the time we get DLC2. But I just have a feeling there's just no way Reznov will not be tying into the zombie storyline, especially after the gun was called Reznov's Revenge within Mob of the Dead. It just doesn't make any sense. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe for the latest and greatest Black Ops 3 zombies news and information. So anyways, thank you for watching and bye.